Well, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, or good day, or wherever you are. It's David George Brooke, that gratitude guy, along with my good friend Suzanne Taylor King, the entrepreneur's secret weapon for this week's topic and our discussion. And this week's topic is outperform rivals with unbeatable relationship longevity. It's kind of a mouthful, but I
Yeah.
do think it's a good topic for this week because of the fact we talk about relationships and whether you and I are
hmm
just talking offline about email, phone, text, voicemails, notes in the mail, whatever it might be, everything that's changed so much, but how you have unbeatable relationship longevity. So, Suzanne,
Yeah.
good day to you. How's everything with you?
Good, good. I was thinking about what's my longest client relationship,
Mhm.
and it goes out to my realtor client, Chris Bate, who he was my patient when I was a dental hygienist,
Mhm.
15 years ago, and he was my patient for 15 years. So we've known each other a long,
Wow.
long time.
Wow.
And he had hired numerous coaches through the real estate industry and wasn't getting the results that he wanted and reached out to me. And it's been more than 3 years that he's been my client.
So if we talk about unbeatable relationship longevity, three big
hmm
words there, what do you think, using him as an example, what do you think was the key that's worked so well for so long?
Well, I think evolving the relationship. So at first he needed structure and habits, and then, kind of letting the relationship evolve to now it's radical accountability and personal development. And, that's not what it started out as, but it evolved into that organically. And, you know, I think that was my willingness to see where the relationship ended up. And also being open to not doing just a program with somebody, like not, being more to a client and just a 9-step program.
Yeah. And how would you say, in that's just using staying with him for a second,
hmm
how did the connection and the relationship evolve over time? Because as again, we were just saying offline, the emails and spam and new rules and things like that. But in terms of just the types of pieces that made the relationship work, how has that evolved?
We had some great conversations when he was my patient, and knowing his wife and his kids. He invited me to my first mastermind group in, I want to say, what year was it? Uh, 97. And it was at morning before work, like coffee and oh, what? I don't want to do that. And he's like, no, 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 you'll get a lot out of it. And being in that started the Think and Grow Rich reading at
Mhm.
that point. So,
And I think again, back to just the term relationship and how that's evolved.
mm,
And one of the things I want to make sure we touch on is just we were talking about email, but I think also I get very sensitive about the term, and I think a lot of us do, but sensitive about the term ghosting. And
mm,
used, I think it really originally was used in relationships, and people wouldn't get back, they'd go on a date, wouldn't get back to people or things like this. But
mhm.
I think it's expanded to the business world where I've said, and I'd love your thoughts on this. I just find this interesting. I try to be very careful with the emails I send out and not these big blanket ones and a bunch of ones which
Yeah.
can be a form of spam in many ways. But as I've said, and I'm just, again, I love your thoughts on this. I'll send out what I consider to be 10 quote unquote average emails. Suzanne, are we meeting on Friday? Here's my Zoom link. Okay, great. Sounds good. Somebody else, let me know if you want to get 2 gratitude journals. Okay, another one. Are you still interested in having a speaker for your event? I mean, I call those just average
Yeah.
communication emails.
hmm
And as a typical rule, I get responses from 3 of 10. And,
Oh, I
and I
think
just
you're
think
doing
that
pretty good.
I know, and I think that's so sad. So,
Yeah.
any thoughts how we could change that?
I don't know. That is one of the things that stumped me, and I'm not talking emails from my, CRM. These are like personal. I'm
Yeah.
typing them out,
Yeah.
and I I don't know. I sent 3 of them last week, and I thought there was massive value in the email, plus a couple questions like, what about this and what about that? Um, One was, when's the next time we're getting together? Um, it's very mutual relationship. No response.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think it's, oh, are my emails not sending?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I
No,
and I
they've been sent.
and I email me, let me make sure this is working, right?
I remember sending like a card or something to back to speaking of ghosting back to a girlfriend or something. It was
Mhm.
something around breaking up, or it was something that wasn't real positive. And I said, well, maybe the guy didn't deliver the mail. And my friend goes, oh no, she got the card. She got
She's
it.
just pretending she
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah, they maybe didn't deliver the mail. But I
Yeah.
think, but I do find it interesting because it goes back to something, this baffling thing, I think, for being on the planet a few decades, is I've said for years, my biggest question around life, off topic a bit, was I don't understand why people don't take better care of themselves. So I present that question to different people, and I'm sure I have to you as well. And people have a lot of, well, they're not as dedicated, and they're lazy, or they fast food is easier than making a healthy dinner, and then exercise is hard, takes time, whatever it might be. So kind of the same way I've asked people, just like I asked you, 10 average emails back to these relationships. And I said, I get 3 back. And you said, that's pretty good. So I've asked
Mhm.
people, why do you think that's the case? And again, I'd love your thoughts on this. The thing that I hear the most
Yeah.
often is people are overwhelmed.
Mhm.
And there's just too much stuff. What is it, 70 or 80,000 impressions we get every single day
Yeah.
from ads, or, the newspaper, radio, whatever it might be.
Yeah. You
But
got you got email notifications, the phone ringing, your desktop alerts,
mhm,
and you know, one of my clients said they get 400 emails a day. I'm like, what are you
yeah,
doing?
yeah, exactly.
Why are you subscribed to that much
To that much stuff.
junk?
Exactly. So what do you think, to try to be positive, see the
Mm.
glass half full here, would be ways to
Mhm.
improve that 3 out of 10?
Increase the value of the relationship
Hmm.
and deepen the relationship. I think, I have certain people that if I email them, they respond immediately. I have other people who, if I text them, they get right back to me. Or I don't know. I think it's improving the quality and not maybe being a little less accessible. Well, we talked about that before,
Right.
being approachable but not accessible. So, I just had that conversation this morning with a client who was waiting for 3 prospects to get back to him. They
Hmm.
all said yes. They all signed off on their proposal, but nobody's paid their invoice yet and booked their onboarding call.
Right.
And he was like, what do I do? What do I do? And I said, you do nothing. If you're worried about what you do, that means you don't have enough prospects in the
Yeah,
pipeline.
that's a good point. That's a good point.
And I think that's the message for me, is that don't worry about the one that didn't answer you. Just say next,
Hmm.
next.
Yeah. And I think I'll give a shout out to, and I'm trying to think what the second thing was. I'll give a shout out to Jeff Goldberg, who I met
Mm.
through you, who had spoken at one of your events. And he said something, he said 2 or 3 things, and I wish I could remember all of them, but I know for sure one of them was, put either your name or the person's name, I forget it is, in the subject line, which I
Yes.
thought was really a tricky little way to do that. And was it the person's, was it the name of the person you were emailing, put their name, or is it your name in the subject line? I can't remember which it was.
There, well, see, you can mass do that with a CRM.
Right, right. But I think it was because, and I guess the reason, if you think about it,
Maybe my name, like from Suzanne Taylor King.
could be that, because to me, when you see the box, the typical email box, like I'm an Outlook box, and you'll see the type, you'll see the from, and you'll see the subject.
Mm.
and you don't get to see anything else. And so I'm just like a lot of people, delete, 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 delete. In fact, sometimes I'm deleting so fast. We've all deleted things we probably
Uh-huh.
want to, but it's
Yeah.
just you want to get rid of all this stuff and keep your mailbox kind of clean. But so if it's the subject line, that would be, and he might have said like something like I want to get back to you on something that's in the subject line and not in the body of the email. I think that was maybe one of the other things too. Or
Oh,
Suzanne had a question for you in the subject line, because the from is obviously our name, and from David or from Suzanne or whatever. And then the subject line is, I think, where I just thought, I remember taking notes on that. I thought that was really clever. Anything you could do to try to increase it. Because
yeah.
here's the thing that gets me about it, that I've always said, I've used the same example for probably 45 years. If I send somebody an email and said, I told you I owe you that money, so I have the $5,000, it's actually in cash. And I just wanted to find out, is 3 o'clock better or 4 o'clock better to stop by your house and deliver it? I
Hmm.
noticed those emails don't get lost. People get
Yeah.
back to those people. Three
Yeah.
o'clock works better for me. I will be there. See, I'll grab you a latte and bread. I mean, because so it always comes down. I try not to get insulted, but it always comes down to how important it is for the person.
Mhm.
Because that's what
Well, I think
determines their
that's the
happiness.
key. To me, there's certain people, if they call me, I answer the phone
Hmm.
because anything they have is important to me. Well, that's a valued connection, valued relationship. I was walking my dog yesterday after and listening to music with my AirPods, and I hear the phone ring and it tells me who it is.
Right.
And it says answer it.
Right.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And it was a 10-minute or less call. And I felt honored that that person called me. Hey, I just need your advice for a second.
Oh, how nice.
Awesome.
Hmm.
I'm happy to be of value to people like that who are of value to me. Well, that's a real relationship.
Yes.
Somebody who sends me a DM on Facebook and says, "Hey, what do you think about blah, blah, blah?" Yeah, I'm in no hurry to get back to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, and that's a case where, of course, social media has taken it so far the other direction. Like you
Mhm.
said, I'm in no hurry. I mean, not, excuse me. I
Yeah.
see those things sometimes.
Yeah.
And honestly, the same thing with LinkedIn. A lot of times it's just, I just don't have time for this. And you just give it a quick glance and so forth. But
Yeah.
also back to relationships, I mentioned to you, and I could use a lot of different examples, but I just think this whole idea of the planting of the tree, the bamboo tree, and you water it for 10 years, and then in year 10, it grows 10 feet, but it
Hmm.
doesn't grow for the first 9 or 10 years. I remember hearing that. Guess that's the
Yeah.
way bamboo is. But I just
Yeah.
mentioned to you offline, this guy, his name's John Hamer, is going to do a story in this local paper. And I thought,
Mhm.
if I was to go back and trace the dots backwards, like Steve Jobs said in his famous speech, I mean, it goes back, it would go for having this article being written, it would go back 15 years to when I first met him at the
More.
Columbia Tower Club, and then this happened and that happened, and all the pieces. And I think that's why it's
Mm.
it's important. And maybe this is one of the more important messages that we could give on this video is, don't get discouraged. Keep investing in people and keep building relationships. You don't, it's like planting all those seeds. Another one you hear a lot. You don't know which seeds are going to grow, but you got to keep planting, because
Yeah.
it's easy to get discouraged.
It is. And I think when you're building, you know, your inner circle relationships, 20, 30, 50 people max. And I think the statistics are, you can remember 100 people.
Hmm.
And that means remember their name, their face, and possibly what they do for a living.
Right.
So I could have 100 people in my network. Um, anyone outside of that 100 follower or a fan, but then I can't refer to 100 different people because I don't know who their ideal client is and what they do for a living and like the intricacies of it. I have to pick 10 or 20 of those people, and they need to be really high quality people. I would answer the phone when they call, as long as I wasn't with a paying client, you know? And I think a lot of people don't look at it. They're expecting referrals from people who don't know you that well.
Yeah,
And not only do you have to know me, but you have to know what kind of guarantee do I put in place with my
right,
client. Oh,
right,
look, you pay Sue for 3 months of coaching and you decide on the goal at the beginning of the 3 months. She keeps working with you until you do. She might be a little more expensive than someone else because of her experience, but she's not going to leave you in the dust when the 3 month to the day mark comes out,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
But people have to know me to know that.
Yeah.
And that takes time.
Yeah, it sure does. Sure does. And it's just, and I was thinking, I think I did a video, I do a lot of them recently on patience as a virtue, and we've heard these things for years, but it's we're in such an impatient society. And I even remember, I'm old enough to remember, well, I guess you are too, when the internet and the pictures would go a line at a time, because it was just the way the internet was before it got high speed or whatever. And if can this picture get here and it just come one different line, finally you'd see the full picture. But as I was talking to somebody once, and they said the speed of the internet and all this kind of stuff continues to grow, but it's kind of hit a place where it can't move anymore. And I said, "What do you mean?" And they said, "Well, what's quicker than instant?" And it's true, and it's just there. Everything just pops up, and there's your face, and there's the picture, whatever it might be. So,
Yeah.
but people are just so you get like a nanosecond to make that decision, like we were saying on email, or whether you're going to delete it or respond to it or whatever you're going to do. And so let me ask your thoughts on this. Coming back to people, and I do understand this. People are overwhelmed. So for the overwhelmed people out there, what thoughts do you have around for those that do want to make a change? It's like you and I have talked about keeping our weight in check and different things. And so we need to be disciplined and, have a checklist and a to-do list and write in your gratitude journal, drink your water, whatever it might be. What thoughts do you have for the people that are overwhelmed that really would like to be not so overwhelmed by this, that, like you said, somebody 200 emails in their inbox or whatever? What thoughts do you have around maybe trying to get them to have a little better mindset?
There's two things that really switched it for me because I was definitely one of those people who just responded to everything whenever it was happening. And I read a book years ago called Deep Work by Cal Newport, which basically was about focus and flow, and able to deeply concentrate on a single task until that task was done.
Mm,
And I was like, oh, and the answer, able to learn like that, not being digitally distracted.
mm,
And his next book was called Digital Minimalism. And it's a little extreme, digital minimalism, but some of the principles are really, really valid.
yeah,
Like right now we're having this conversation. I don't have notifications on. My phone's turned over, so I can't see it if it lights up because I know, like even out of my peripheral vision, if my phone lit up on my desk, I might, you know,
yeah,
just that micro
right.
moment of distraction
Hmm.
changes your brain and the way you're thinking and the way you're able to connect with another person. So I think number one, when you're with someone else, keep your phone in your purse or not even on the table if you're meeting somebody for coffee.
Yeah,
Because I've been with other people, my phone's in my purse and their phone's on the table and it zzz, zzz, well, it
and then
distracts me.
and then worse yet,
Oh,
I've been with friends, and I'm sure I'm using the right word friend. Maybe it's more of an acquaintance. They're talking to you, and then zip zip. Yeah. So how's Dennis? Is everything? And they're looking. I go, what are you doing? We're having coffee here, and they're looking at
uh-huh.
their phone. And I
Yeah.
just I'm not going to go around with my little switch like the teacher and hit their knuckles. But I'll tell you, it makes me not want to have coffee with them again.
Mhm.
Because it's just rude. It goes
Well,
back.
you don't feel important,
Exactly. And
right?
that's this is the in-person thing and so forth. In
Yeah.
fact, I've noticed in restaurants I've gone to too many times. It's funny, it appears to be a husband and wife. They're having dinner and they're both on their phones. and they're not even talking to each other. It just cracks me up, and they're both looking at their phone. It's like, wow, what's the
Yeah.
point and stuff.
Yeah.
But no, but
Yeah. What is the point if
so, but it's interesting though, about back to this overwhelm thing. One of the things that I'm a proponent of now, when you said that the phone can see my phone's right there, but I should turn it over, which I just did just to make sure, which is really smart. But at the same time, you think about dopamine hits is what these things are. And people get, oh, I
yes.
got buzz, I got this. But I
Yep.
said this, some gal the other day, I said, well, I have this power hour I do every morning. So dopamine hits can be good too, as opposed to bad. And I said something about, well, the first thing I do is get up, make my bed. She goes, oh, dopamine hit. And I went, yeah, make my bed. I've already accomplished something, go in and drink my quart of water, turn on the latte machine, jump in the shower, come back, do my stretching, do my meditation, write in the gratitude journal, make my coffee and then turn on the laptop, or look at the phone or whatever. And so it can be a good thing, but I think sometimes people are looking for at least thoughts, maybe, and I don't like the
Yeah.
word advice, but maybe thoughts around how to not feel so overwhelmed. And I know
Yeah.
I have to be, now I happen to be, I've always shown this to you many times. My little half sheet of paper is my day. And then sometimes I'll rewrite it. And I have other notes and things. But I had a day the other day where I have this, I didn't want to forget something. So I had this little small pad. And I must have had about 5 or 6 of those pieces of paper. And this was scribbled on and 2 or 3 other things. And I just thought, this is just, I can't take this. This is
Too
just,
much.
we need to start over again. So I,
Well, yeah, I do post-it notes
yeah,
and
and post-it notes, similar thing, because you don't want to forget it. But what I did, which again seems so simplistic, but I did this and I just took a brand new piece of paper, started pulling all the post-it notes, all the little ones, and put, no, that's not as important. Put that at the bottom. This one's more important. Put that at the top, and make a fresh new to-do list for the day.
yep.
And I can't tell you how much better I felt
Oh
because it
yeah.
wasn't all floating around in my head. And I just wonder if that type of thing might help people that have that sense of overwhelm.
I think it does. I mean, I think it was David Allen who getting things done.
Hmm.
Um, and before, you know, digital note taking, he recommended having a notebook, with 3 or 4 lists in it. You have your work list, your home list, and your self list.
Yeah.
And you just get it all out of your head, everything
Yep.
you want to do, everything you want to accomplish.
Yeah.
Um, and that's good unless if you have, I have 4 projects I'm working on right now. So there's a list for each project and then taking the list and putting it in order
Exactly.
and what can I get rid of? And I know it really hit me when I read another book about getting to the next level that you have to get rid of 80% of what you're currently doing if you want the 20% to be successful. And I was like,
Yeah, I know.
gosh, how do you do that?
I know. And it's funny too, like when you said for the 3 lists, the personal, professional, the self one, or whatever it was,
Mhm.
home list, is you do this download of all this stuff from your
Yeah.
mind because it's hard to go to sleep at night and then I'll wake up and think, well, I want to sleep for another half hour, but then I sometimes just get out of bed because I start thinking about too many things. But another thing that really helped me, I did it last night, is that same little small pad. I have one of those by my bed because I'll put
Yes.
the stuff that I know I don't want to forget this, and I'll write it down, and I'm so glad I did in the morning. And that can be helpful too, so you can sleep better because you're not thinking. Then you spend half the time thinking, I don't want to forget that, and it'll make it hard to go to sleep or get back to sleep or whatever. In fact, today I was thinking off topic, but how it's so funny. Woke up about 4:30, went to the bathroom, and then I'm trying to get back to sleep, and I'm kind of awake. And then
Hmm.
so I finally get back to sleep, and then I wake up at 6:30 and I'm just exhausted. I go, what was the difference between 4:30 and 6:30? Is that one of those circadian rhythm
Yes.
cycles or something?
Hmm.
Oh, it was just, oh man, sometimes
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
before
I
4:30.
should have gotten up at 4:30. I felt better.
I know exactly, and start getting
Uh-huh.
done at things too. So anyway, but getting back to the relationship. So what are their thoughts? Again, I don't like the advice word, but outperform rivals with unbeatable relationship longevity to keep those relationships going. Another thing just pops into my mind. Any other thoughts you have? I still have occasionally, not often, but occasionally have sent handwritten thank you notes,
Hmm.
which I still think, I don't know if that ever, I know there's a thing called the post office and there's a little thing called a stamp. It's pretty gone the way of a lot of things, but I don't know if that ever goes out of style.
No, I think it's super classy.
Mhm.
Um, I think, yeah, I think when I send a thank you note to somebody who's been on my podcast with um a $5 Starbucks card that says, thanks a latte, you know,
Mhm.
and have a coffee on me. Thank you for my show.
Right.
Look forward to continuing the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just think I had somebody reach out to me that got one and said, wow, it's really, really cool. My wife stole the gift card, but thanks. Thanks for the
Yeah.
note, you know? And I said, happy to make your wife happy for you, you know? And I just think it's a little something that most people don't do. And it's funny, I have this connection who's a really famous business coach, and he has about 600 coaches on his team, on his consulting
Wow.
team, and he's really, really brilliant. He's in his 80s, and he reached out after a relationship post of mine on social media. He follows me on Facebook, and he said, I have a great idea for you, handwritten notes, deepen those relationships. And he said, I send out a handwritten note at least once a year to valued connections
Hmm.
and a birthday card to
Yeah.
those valued connections. And I was like, wow, I've never been good with birthday cards.
That's a good
So
idea.
how can I get that into a system?
Hmm. Yeah. You know, it's interesting in terms of recognition. Again, we're
Mhm.
talking about relationships and the longevity of them. I got to give a shout out to Nordstrom, where they did a great job on recognition. Once a month they had, and you said he's this 80-year-old guy sends out the card and then the birthday card, and we're just being
Mhm.
recognized. And we want to be, you and I have talked about in the last couple of days about ways that you want to be appreciated and recognized and
Yeah.
so forth. And so they did something that I just think is worth saying, and then we'll wrap up in about 5 minutes. I just thought this was spectacular to have a monthly thing called the recognition meeting. I mean, that was the name of the meeting.
I
And so
love that.
all the management teams from all the stores, so there'd be like 10 or 12 stores in the Seattle area, would all come to the one of the hotels in downtown Seattle for the meeting. And so you'd all sit with your stores together, and there's the store manager, I'm up front, and my HR person, not secretary, admin, and the HR person sat with me, and then all the managers of all the departments. So
Mhm.
then they give all these awards. But what they did, which was just so amazing to me, is you'd be called up front. And so now the award for the Department of the Month from the Northgate store with David Brooke is Suzanne Taylor King from Point of View. And so you'd come up to the thing. And so then I would talk about you in front of the group. Well,
Mm.
Suzanne has been running my POV department for 2 or 3 years, had a spectacular month, and I'd go through and she had the sales and she increased her sales and she cut her markdowns and she had more inventory control was unbelievable. Her markdowns were great. Go through this. And then I have a card and it would say all the things I just said on the card on the outside. And then so
Mm.
I would say this in front of all the Nordstrom family sitting in the front. And so everybody, so here's your card and give me a hug. And so thanks to Suzanne Taylor King, everybody would clap and you go,
Yeah.
you got all this press in front of these people. You go back to your chart, you open up the card. Here's a nice greeting card. You're the best with all the stats on it and $100 bill. And so
Amazing.
I just went, they've covered everything, the money, the card, the recognition in front of the family. And it's like, I never forgot that. I thought this is just genius because you're trying to figure out as many ways as you can to reach somebody and show them, in this case, appreciation. And isn't
Yeah.
that what we're talking about when we're talking about relationships and the longevity of same is to make sure they understand how much we appreciate them.
Yeah, that's something I started doing within my Facebook community is whoever the most active member of the month was that
Mhm.
was not me or like one of the regulars, like
Right.
some newer standout person who really posted a lot or shared a lot or and kind of making a post that featured them.
Yeah.
Like, well, the feedback from that was amazing
Yeah.
because people don't think that they're actually making a difference. And
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. To know that
great.
in different ways. So, well, as we
Mhm.
wrap up, any final sort of thoughts? And I'm going to go back to outperform rivals with unbeatable relationship longevity. Any final thoughts for the viewing and
Oh,
listening?
make them intentional
Hmm.
and realize that you only have room for 20 or 30 really close relationships.
Yeah,
And then the next step out, and I'm talking business relations, 30 inner circle, and then another 50 in to 100 in that everyone else is a follower or a fan.
yeah, yeah,
And when you really think about that, that you can't be friends with everybody, you
right,
can't have our relationship with everybody.
right,
You'd never get any work done.
exactly.
That is something really powerful to remember.
Well said. And I would close on my end with just some of the old lines about don't get discouraged. You know,
Yeah.
they say that the guy that was digging for gold comes up
Mhm.
short sometimes 5 inches until the vein of gold. And the one that I love is the average salesman. It takes 4 sales calls to make a sale for the average salesman, but the average salesman gets discouraged at 2 calls. And so you're never going to get there. So you always have to make that one more effort, that send that one more email, make that one more call, send that one more card, and don't get discouraged because it is easy to get discouraged. But so many times you look back on things, and again, as Steve Jobs says, connecting the dots of your life backwards. You look back and you see. I use that example of the Mercer Island reporter. You look back and oh, so that's how it works. So keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep pushing forward, and it'll always pay off in the long run.
Yeah.
So, SDK, the entrepreneur's secret weapon. Thank you so much. I'm David George Brooke, that gratitude guy, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. Bye bye.